Hi, everybody. How are you? Welcome to our webinar. We're going to talk today a little bit about GoliathTech, what it is to become a GoliathTech franchisee, and why people look to us for as a franchisor. On the agenda today, we're going to go through a bunch of different stuff. Some of it is franchisee frustrations. So what people get frustrated about when they're looking for a franchise. We'll go meet GoliathTech. So who are we, the team a little bit, and so on and so forth. What is in it for me? So if I'm a franchisee and I'm looking to buy a franchise, what is it that I want? Available business models. So we're going to talk about different ways to become a franchisee, depending on your personal situation. Start the journey, which is basically going through, the steps involved in assessing, is this the right franchise for me? And then in the end, we're going to do a question and answer period, which will be an open forum, written questions and or verbal questions from you.
Okay. So my name is James. My official title is technical specialist here. So what my role would be, especially in the beginning, if you came on board and became a franchisee, is we'd be working closely together to make sure that you understand all the processes, and that we look at each project and all its challenges, so that once you come on board, we just don't hand you the keys and we hope for the best. We'll work very closely together in the beginning to make sure that we answer all your questions and all your needs are met. Do you want to talk about yourself?
Yeah, I guess so. So I'm Julian. I'm the CEO of GoliathTech. GoliathTech was founded in 2004 by a young gentleman named David Bissonette. I ended up buying his company after he ran it for about 9 years. I bought it in 2013. Converted the company into a franchise model when I bought it. He was a guy working out of his garage in a small little area in Sherbrooke, Quebec, a little town up in Canada, and he basically, he was running for 9-10 years, and he basically was making money and so on and so forth. But I saw it as more an opportunity that could go global. So franchise frustration. So when people are looking to buy a franchise, a bunch of things occur. They start analyzing, the many opportunities out there. It could be restaurants, could be construction like we are, there's different things. So, but there's certain things that are always frustrating for the franchisee. The first one is obviously long setup time. You buy, I don't know, a given restaurant chain franchise, and you want to get going, but then you've got to build a building, you've got to get the equipment, you've got to go through all this process, and a year later you're finally set up and you're up and running, because you've got to get permitting, you've got to find a location, and there's quite a complex setup time. Whereas with GoliathTech, you can literally be in your living room within a few weeks after signing your contract. You're up and running, and you're making money already. So there's very, very, very quick setup time with a GoliathTech franchise. Another thing people get frustrated about is very high royalty fees. So they're working hard for these other franchisors, and in the end they're giving these massive royalties to the franchisor, and it's just sort of cutting into their profitability. We don't do that. We have a zero royalty setup, so that makes it nice and easy. Strict brand guidelines. So what does that mean? Obviously we want to maintain our quality, we want to maintain our name, and so on and so forth, and it's a very important thing to do. But at the same time, we're not going to be completely overreacting on brand guidelines. But at the same time, we want our reputation to be clean in the market. So we're lenient, but we're not. So it's somewhere in the middle. Obviously, because our brand is very important. Lack of opportunity, limited by how many chairs there are in your restaurant, as a good example, and there are large setup costs. We're going to go through these issues and why at GoliathTech you don't have to face these problems when buying one of our franchises. So franchise cost. First frustration is some of the franchises out there, they're massive investments. You want to start a hotel, obviously you're talking about, could be $50 million to build the building, start the hotel. It's 2 years of planning, and they're obviously very, very, very costly and lengthy setup. So it's hard to just sort of jump into business, and it's not very accessible for the average budget, we'll call it. Same can happen for other smaller chains as well, because you're still talking into the millions. So high demands could be strict guidelines, strict operating guidelines. So there's basically zero leeway on how your day goes about. So you're so stuck within a frame. Obviously as a franchisor, we want to have a frame. That's the whole purpose of being a franchise chain. But at the same time, we don't want to lock people down so that they just have no room to create and grow with their business and help us grow. Another issue could be very, very long franchise terms, a 25-year commitment. We do it in 5-year increments, so it's a different a different model where you can, obviously you're going to renew after 5 years, but you're not tied in at the get-go with a 25-year period. We don't force people to have a $1.5 million net worth like some other chains might do, because we're not targeting that category where someone has to have that amount of cash. Startup time. Many of the chains, obviously, as I was saying earlier, you're building a building, you're building a hotel, you're opening a restaurant. You have a massive startup time. At the GoliathTech franchise, you go through a week of boot camp training, Jim over here, and you're operational immediately. So within 3-4 weeks after signing, already you're out there and you're making money. There's not this year of planning while your money's going out the door and no revenue's coming in. We're not going to leave you in the jungle after a week. We're going to do the training, but then you'll be tied at the hip to Jim over here for could be 6 months, because there's so many new scenarios that will come up. So after your 40-hour boot camp, you're off and running, but at the same time, we're not just leaving you out in the field. You've got ongoing training for a minimum of 6 months. I mean, so actually, realistically, it never really ends, because there's always new products coming up. There's new scenarios coming up. So that goes on for a long time. So meet GoliathTech. Who are we? We have all kinds of different awards for different things that have happened over the years, recognized from third parties. Example, we had a great one from Entrepreneur Magazine that says, out of all the best top chains in the world, we were in the top 10 best investment versus return on your money. And the reason they said that is because with the GoliathTech franchise, there was no limitation to how big you can grow your franchise. Whereas, so if you want to put that in relative to another opportunity, if you get a restaurant franchise, well, there's only, let's say, 50 chairs in your restaurant. You can only put 3 shifts a day, so you're limited by the amount of space you have and the area what you work in. Whereas in the GoliathTech system, it's not at all like that. You can do fencing, you can do decks, you can do patios, you can do windmills, you can do, so it's a much larger range of possibilities to grow with over the years. We have 150 open franchise units. We're opening at least 1 or 2 new ones every month somewhere in the world. No royalty fees. Before, we were talking about a lot of the franchise chains have royalty fees, which is basically taking your hard-earned money, making it go away at the end, and the franchisor kind of reaps back that amount. But we don't do that. We're a product-based franchise. You buy the product, you mark it up, you keep all your money. We don't try to take money back from you as a royalty on your operations.
So my esteemed colleague has been talking quite a bit about the business part of GoliathTech, but you're probably wondering, what will I be doing as a franchisee? So you'll be installing helical piles. So what is a helical pile and what is it used for? A helical pile is basically an enormous large screw we install in the ground with our calibrated installation equipment. And with that, we can calculate the resistance or the installation torque required to install that helical pile. And from that, we can deduce exactly how much capacity or how much weight we can put on that helical pile. And a helical pile can be used for literally any foundation needed to support the smallest structure as a mailbox to a larger structure such as a bridge. It all depends on the size of the pile, the depth, the size of the helix, and all those things we'll talk about when we get going. So how have helical piles really revolutionized the construction industry? So there are a few ways, but probably the most relevant for our conversation today is the speed and efficiency of the installation of the helical pile. We'll never completely get rid of concrete, But imagine you can do your foundation for your deck or your home addition. You can install the foundation in as little as 1 day. There's no delays for concrete availability right now, which is quite an issue. There's no curing time. There's no unwanted excavation where we have to remove bad soil, fill in compaction, more concrete, more curing time. We install the pile, and then we can build on it immediately.
So why buy a franchise within the construction industry? When times are, when the economy is going very well, people are building and construction is booming. When the economy goes really bad, well, then people are renovating, and there's still, so construction never really takes, not the same as a lot of industries that go into slumps during poorer economies, which is obviously what we're heading into right now. In the construction industry, it's an ever growing global industry. So even if markets go well or poorly, there's so much work out there in the construction. I mean, you drive around your own city wherever you live, and all you see in every direction is construction. So if you're aggressive and you want the business as a franchisee, it's there. You just have to grab it. Why would I want to get into the helical pile business if I'm not a contractor? Well, we're not looking for general contractors. We're looking for business people that want to grow businesses. So you don't have to be in the construction industry. You could be in any industry you want. In our top 5 franchisees, the top 5 performers, I think it's 3 or 4 out of the 5 did not come from the construction industry whatsoever. One was a school teacher and different stuff like that. But you don't have to be a contractor to get into this, because we will train you how to do the installation part. It's more of a business growth sales opportunity. So who are we looking for? We're looking for entrepreneurs, business opportunity seekers, go-getters. So what's a go-getter? A go-getter is someone that's willing to pick up the phone, call upon general contractors who will be your customers as a franchisee, and get repeat business. So go out there and get these guys they're going to call you 50 times a year to do pile jobs for them. So once you get one of these general contractors going, you can expect repeat business. And that's why we say we need go-getters, people that aren't afraid to pick up the phone and do that. So what's in it for me? Why do I want to be a franchisee of GoliathTech? Earlier I was explaining that there is no cap on the amount of business you can do. So obviously there's no cap on the amount of profit and you can make. And obviously without a royalty fee, it makes it very attractive versus some other franchises out there. The training is very thorough, to say the least. We go through we've been evolving this training for years and years and years. And we're very good at it because we open a lot of franchises every month. And the training process is very fluid, and the support after training for that first critical year, we'll call it, is, we're right there for you. Setup is very fast, as fast as you can get an excavator. 10 days later, we can have your quick attach built over here and your motor shipped and everything out the door, and you're operational. You have access as a franchisee to an incredibly, people buy a franchise because they want structure. They want the back end to support what they're doing out in the field. You don't want to have your own engineering department and accounting and customer service, a manufacturing plant. All that is us. What we support you with is the manufacturing, the engineering, accounting, customer service, field support. So I'm out in the mud and I've got to put up this huge structure, and I've never done this before. This is a new scenario. I may have done 100 jobs before, but this scenario is new. Well, you're a phone call away from a person who can say, well, we have a chain of franchisees who do about 3,000 to 4,000 construction jobs a month. Within that, you can imagine that there's always a scenario that matches or is similar to what you're trying to get done today. So we've got the support and the backing and the experience and the volume of jobs going on that will be able to support you. We spent a ton of money on purpose on patents because we wanted to make sure that we had advantages over our competition. We don't like going out there and saying, well, this guy's $99, the next guy's $98, and then we're going to come in at $97. That's a hard sale, and it creates price erosion. Instead, what we did is we said, okay, those guys are $100. Well, we're $100 as well. But here are all the technical advantages of why you want to go with a GoliathTech pile. And that's a much more, that's a much stronger sale, because people aren't necessarily looking to save $1. They want to make sure that the structure is properly supported and has certain features. So we give you technical feature advantages so that when you're doing your sales process with your customers, you have that, those check boxes that people want, that people lock into to help you sell, as opposed to price wars, which nobody likes. We're 100% compliant with all the building codes, whether you're, it doesn't matter where you are in the world. We have people in France, we have people in the US, people in Canada, people in the Caribbean, it doesn't matter. We always comply with the codes. The engineering design vary depending on the given local code, but we always meet it. We have a standard 30-year warranty on our piles, so that's for the physical piles themselves. Rated #1 in the helical pile industry. What does that mean? It's because we're the fastest growing. We're moving globally into new markets faster than anyone else. We have an incredibly high-end product that's extremely competitive. Talked about the check boxes before. That's a lot what that's about. And then, of course, there's this whole concept of, our products do not move. So a lot of people build, as an example, a deck or a patio on concrete foundations. But what happens is when the ground freezes, or if there's ground movement, if you have expansive soils or clay, when the soils move or freeze, your structures will move and fluctuate. Whereas with a helical pile, there's zero movement because they're penetrated deep into the soil, where they don't have, you're not facing that kind of a movement, because the pile itself is physically held to the ground. So it doesn't only hold your structure up, it actually holds it down as well. Yeah, I'll let you go.
So sphere installation. Okay, so why is a helical pile better than, concrete, other sorts of piles, a driven pile, that sort of thing? Well, for instance, you can install a helical pile that can support 30,000 pounds of compression load. So you can put 30,000 pounds of weight on one pile. You can install that pile with a relatively small mini excavator. The excavator can weigh as little as 5,000 pounds. So you can build a very strong foundation for basically, like I said, any kind of structure, from a mailbox to a home addition and everything in between, with a very small piece of installation equipment. You don't have to be concerned about showing up to your job site with a 20-ton excavator, large trucks bringing the equipment in, concrete trucks, pump trucks, that sort of thing. You can do an unbelievable amount of work with very small installation equipment.
All right. So world-class support. What does that mean? It means that, this is not the first company, if I look at, because it's not the first company that I built from zero. I was very used. I had a company prior to this one, which had 11,000 resellers in 67 countries in the world. And, you don't get there unless you have world-class support, because you won't win. You're going to fade. People are going to walk away if they don't get that feeling. So you have to, as a franchisor, to build confidence and trust in your franchisees, and of course in their customers, because that's the real customer. A franchisee is not the customer; it's the actual person, receiving the service or getting the piles. To build that support, you have to have world-class support. So getting to know each other, very important. Obviously, we'll do that slowly but surely after you sign. You're going to go through a bunch of steps before you sign as well. Of course, there's that whole, who are we, what do we do, and so on and so forth. There's certification with our expert, so you'll go through a training program, as we talked about earlier. Then there's growing with us. That's a never-ending model. We might be talking the same. We might be telling you the same thing in 10 years, right? Here we are. Well, what's our goal? We're going to grow some more. That's what we do. Support on the job. Well, if we don't have the best world-class service and support on the job, and it's all tied together.
So here's a few of our success stories. Like Julian was saying, I believe it's four of our top five most successful franchisees had very, very little to no experience in the construction excavation industry. So these are a few. For example, Darcy and her husband, she was a teacher and he was an electrical engineer. When they came here for the training, they rented an excavator and actually practiced in their backyard before they got here. That's how little experience they had. So you may be wondering, again, as Julian's point, I don't have experience in construction or excavation. Well, I'll give you an example. You can be a world-class chef and open a McDonald's franchise, but if you don't show up in the morning to unlock the door and turn the ovens on, it's just not going to succeed. We're actually looking for the person, not the experience that you already have.
All right, so steps to ownership. How do you go through the process of buying a GoliathTech franchise? Well, first of all, obviously there's the initial contact. We're going to hook you up with one of our franchise specialists, so someone who, will guide you through, what is this all about? What is the contract? What's in there? What's the depths of our relationship? After you go through, what typically takes a few weeks, 3, 4, 5 weeks of that initial contact where you're just learning about the opportunity. Then you go through this process, 1 and 2, where your initial contact, getting to know us, where you start looking at the numbers. So we start analyzing the market, where you're going to go with it, what you want to do as a franchisee. Do you want to have, start with 1 crew, or do you want to go in with 15 crews like some of our bigger franchisees? It depends what you have as an investment, goal versus, the setup will suggest for you, because we're going to guide you. If you say, I've got X amount of funds to inject at the starting point, well, X might mean we have a very large structured franchise, or it might mean we have a simple, one-man show to start, build it slowly, grow it. It's up to your budget, right? We follow that, obviously. Another big step is, obviously, once you go through that, first 3 steps, you want to talk with other franchisees. I've rarely seen a franchise sale go through where a franchisee or a potential franchisee didn't get on the phone and talk to them, other franchisees, as well as actually flying up and visiting some of them. Walk around one of our locations, follow one of their crews in the field, watch their the office side. What is it? What are they doing? How are they getting business? How are they communicating with their customers? That's a huge important step. It's actually, it would be a shame not to do that, because it's such a critical part of the whole evaluation process. After you go through those first 4 steps, then the next step would be signing an agreement. Very simple. We've gone through all the details of the agreement in the previous steps. So you sign your agreement, and then we go straight into our step where we start to introduce you to all the departments. So you'll get introduced to your internal rep and the engineering side. You'll get a CS rep. You'll get a support and training rep. Manufacturing, basically, you'll have different people to support you. You'll get introduced to them. Then after that, you're going to go through our training program. So you'll either come up here to the head office and do the training program. Sometimes we'll do it in the field. Most people come up here because they want to walk around the floor. We have a huge plant, and if you walk around the manufacturing floor here, and then you go out in the field and you meet your customers, it's always easier to sell it when you've walked around and you've kicked the tires, and you say, okay, well, I saw the big presses, and I saw the laser cutting machines, and I saw the cranes and all that heavy equipment that actually manufactures this, and it makes it easier to speak to your customer about how it's made, about the quality. When you walk on our floor, you can eat put a pizza on the floor and eat it. No, it's clean, very, very clean manufacturing floor. And then you're off. You launch your business, and you'll have shaky legs, whatever. We'll be there to hold you. It's normal. Everyone is a bit nervous at the beginning, the first few weeks, really. First job is obviously tough, but like anything, the first time you do anything in your life, it's always going to be a feat, right?
And a learning curve.
But we're right there. You're not going in alone. That's why people buy a franchise. They don't want to go in to something they don't know. All right. So step 1. life as a franchisee. So what is the life as a franchisee? I bought my franchise. I went through all that stuff that we just talked about. What happens the next day? So the next day you wake up in the morning, very simple. Pick up the phone, or you go out there and you go and meet foundation repair companies, contractors, decking companies, engineering firms, architecture firms, and you present to them. We actually consistently fly out to help you at the beginning to meet these new companies, because it's hard to, when you don't know the lingo yet. I mean, sometimes we'll be there live. You're presenting to an engineering firm that has 25 engineers in one room at a lunch and learn in their facility. Well, we might go there live, or other times, you might have one guy and you say, well, not worth grabbing a plane, but we'll have one of our presentation specialists on video doing the presentation while you're there live. And our goal when we do that is to train you how to present. So we're getting you a customer while we're there live, and we are training you at the same time to be able to present yourself. So it becomes scalable. We want to transfer knowledge to each one of our franchisees. So step one, you go out there, you meet contractors. Step two, you receive project plans from the contractors. Very simple. They will say, I've got such and such structure to build. They'll send you a set of plans, maybe a soils report, depending on the size of the project. You will then give those plans to either our in-house engineers, or you may use a local engineer as well. Both are fine. After 3-4 days goes by, you'll receive a recommendation back either from our engineers or the engineer you choose locally, who will say, it's this diameter pile, it's got to go this depth, and so on and so forth. You will then dispatch your crew for installation, do the job, invoice your customer, back to step one, get back on the phone, get another contractor going. And by the way, you're not calling one customer for one sale. You're calling repeat business contractors. So in a perfect world, you've got one person that's consistently out there calling new customers, while you've got a support crew, and you'll build it over time. If it doesn't happen on the first day, it's okay. But you'll have a support crew out there executing the jobs. But one person always out there building that client base, which you need. Certification.
So we have our ISO 9001, our 14001. So basically the efficiency and the consistency of our manufacturing. It's also, we meet all the environmental rules, ICC, and the CCMC is kind of the same thing. The ICC is for the US, CCMC is for Canada. It's the materials code that we follow to make sure that we're consistent with our manufacturing. Our CWB and the AWS is the welding certificates for Canada and the US. The other go over in much more detail when you come on board, but it's basically that we meet all the required building code certificates, etc. in Canada, the US, Europe, in literally anywhere we're operating. We always meet all the required building codes.
We've won tons of awards. I talked about one of them before, which was our best investments versus return. But there's all kinds of different things that people recognize us for. We get ranked in the Franchise 500. We get Franchisee Choice Awards from Canadian Franchise Association, or the US, or the International Franchise Association in the US. We get rated by Franchise Gator in the top 100, and there's many different awards that we have won over the years. Start your journey. Okay, so there's different models that you can choose to become a franchisee. The first model, very simple. You don't have a business of any sort. You go through the process and you start your business from zero, through really everything we talked about earlier, which is most of our franchisees. I'd say about maybe 70% go from no active current business to running one of our locations, and that's pretty much most of the franchisees. But there are other types of models that happen. Some people will have an existing business. It may be in construction, they may be a painter, they may be whatever part of the industry and maybe they're not doing so well in that industry, so they want to convert to something that's a little more profitable. The piling industry is a very profitable industry, so that's it's always attractive to people looking for a new angle. Third one is you have a construction company and you have a series of customers that you're already supporting, but you want to increase the amount of business you do with those customers. So you say, well, what can I do to take my, I don't know, $5-10 million of revenue and bring that to 15? Well, you might, you want to keep those customers, but you might want to introduce a new product, and that some people will do that by using by buying a GoliathTech franchise to inject more growth into their current business model. So what does it cost? Very simple. It's actually a very inexpensive franchise to get into. The franchise fee itself is $49,500. That's the actual fee. Then there's the investment range. So what does that mean? $100,000 to $241,000 investment range means that all things in computers, your pickup truck, your trailer, your excavator, all the different equipment you're going to need. Your total investment will be 100 to 240 something thousand investment range. Again, no royalty fee whatsoever. We don't charge. We have a 6% product purchases goes to an international advertising fund. What that is all the franchisees pay in to a marketing fund, and that money, we don't keep it. Remember, there's no royalties here. We don't keep that money. We take that money and we put it right back into your area, and we use our internal marketing specialists, because obviously, when you buy a franchise, one of the things you're buying is a marketing department. So you're wiser to give us 6% of your money, and then our specialists in helical pile marketing go out there and do what's right to be able to get business and market pull for you, as opposed to try to learn it on the fly. That's why you're buying a franchise, right?
So I'll just take the one more point to this. So if we're looking at the total investment, one of the things to keep in mind, if you're looking at this as from a risk point of view, is the equipment you need. For instance, you need a pickup truck, a trailer, an excavator. That's what else you need to buy separate from what comes from us. So if you're looking at it from a risk point of view, those are very low risk items to buy. If things change, if for whatever happens, you can easily sell those items. The only specific equipment that you purchase from us is the installation drive head, and it's a relatively low cost if we look at the overall cost. So as opposed to, for instance, buying a McDonald's franchise, again, I'll go with McDonald's, buying a McDonald's franchise where you buy a very specific McDonald's French fry oven, which if things don't work out, you're kind of stuck with that. I mean, it's very specific. You can only potentially sell it to other McDonald's franchisees. With us, again, it's very low risk items. Truck, trailer, excavator. I mean, you can easily, as of right now, you could probably resell them at a profit, actually.